The maitre d' had placed a candle between us, the kind that makes everyone look softer than they are. Our plates were cleared. The dessert menu sat like a dare, and the woman I married leaned back in her chair, folded her napkin in half like a flag she was tired of saluting, and gave me the line I know she'd rehearsed. "Yes, I cheat on you with him," she sneered, each word clipped like a coupon. "And I regret absolutely nothing." Around us, the restaurant hummed with the gentle lies of date night. Anniversary toasts, half-truths about work, couples pretending the world can be suspended for 90 minutes if the lighting is good enough. I pictured our table the way a drone might. 2 people in a warm circle of light, one choosing cruelty like it was a hobby, the other smiling into a storm. "Happy anniversary, then," I said, and raised my water glass as if we were toasting a real milestone instead of a demolition. She stood, smoothed her dress, and glanced toward the bar where he waited. Jeremy, my former friend turned motivational quote in sneakers. He lifted 2 fingers in a little salute, already smug. It would have stung more if I hadn't learned the truth weeks ago. It would have stung less if they'd tried to hide it better. Affairs leave fingerprints when people believe they're too clever to wear gloves. She slid her chair in with a prim little shove and collected her purse. "You always wanted me to be honest," she said. "There it is." She tossed a look at my plate. "Don't make a scene. Be mature." Then she walked past me, past the candle, past the 15 years we'd stacked like firewood, and out the door with him. I watched their silhouettes blend into the brass reflection of the entry glass and past the hostess stand, where they paraded their new honesty under chandelier light. I paid the bill with a steady hand that surprised even me, thanked the server for the wine recommendation, and smiled like we just finished a particularly complicated math problem. Outside, the air had that early spring bite that reminds you, weather is a promise kept over time. I buttoned my coat, tipped the valet, and stood for a second under the awning, watching a couple argue in whispers about a parking ticket. A busker played a saxophone at the corner, a blues lick that bent around the doorway and curled under my collar. I let the sound sit with me a minute, then I laughed. Not loud, not unhinged, just a small, clean laugh, like clearing dust out of a room. Because tomorrow's delivery would be the shock of her life. It hadn't started tonight, it had started 3 months earlier with a different kind of delivery. A push notification that a package was left on our porch while she was supposed to be at Pilates. I brought it inside and saw the label, athletic wear for men, shipped to her name, attention, J. The handwriting on the gift note, "You'll look good in this." C. was not mine. The return address matched the boutique where Jeremy bragged about getting custom cuts. People don't realize how often the universe gifts you clarity with free shipping. I didn't confront her. I learned, fast and quietly, that confrontation gives liars home field advantage. I started documenting instead. Calendars, receipts, the sudden appearance of new playlists and perfumes that didn't live in our house. The restaurant charge on a Tuesday at the far end of town. The hotel bar tab on a Wednesday, when the house alarm said we both came home late, separately. The emergency brainstorm nights that matched his social media stories. Martinis, dim corners, captions about hustle. I also learned that when you stop asking questions out loud, truth gets impatient and introduces herself. A woman named Talia, who worked in accounting at Jeremy's firm, and knew me from charity softball, sent a careful message the night she saw my wife's name pop up in an Uber ride split with him at 1:12 a.m. "Maybe I'm wrong," she wrote, "but if I were you, I'd want someone to gently pull the fire alarm." I thanked her and didn't ask for more. Fire alarms are loud enough. The second thing I learned, lawyers drink their coffee black and their sentences even blacker. Mine, Holloway, told me in one meeting what people usually learn after 3 mistakes. Don't yell, don't threaten, don't post, get your paperwork right, freeze joint exposure, move anything sentimental to safety, and when you deliver, do it with a courier, not a confrontation. Her office smelled like ink and resolve. I left with a checklist and a peace I hadn't felt in months. I followed it like a man who builds houses and knows that beams don't care about feelings. I closed our joint credit card and opened one in my name. I moved my grandmother's quilt to my sister's guest room and my grandfather's watch to the lockbox. I scheduled 2 appointments, a locksmith for 8 a.m. tomorrow and a moving company for 9 a.m. I also scheduled a delivery, several actually. The first delivery would go to our condo. I'd labeled every box with my wife's name and a tidy list of contents. The movers would carry them out while the locksmith changed the locks, and I supervised with coffee in hand. A separate courier would be knocking at precisely 9:30 with a leather envelope for her. Divorce papers, copies of her messages, a settlement offer that honored what I could still respect about our years together, but not a minute more. It included the prenup clause she'd forgotten existed, the one that had felt unromantic when we signed, but now read like a lighthouse. The second delivery would go to her parents' house, attention to her mother, who had once told me in the kitchen that men who don't pay attention lose their wives to men who do. Inside that parcel, a simple, polite letter explaining we were separating, a request for privacy, and a neat timeline that made gossip unnecessary. I asked for no side-taking. I offered none. I gave them the dignity of facts. The third delivery, my favorite, would arrive at Jeremy's office. A tasteful basket, no sarcasm, no cruelty, filled with congratulations on your ethics books, a stress ball shaped like a heart, and a copy of the company's dating policy, highlighted where it mentions, no relationships that compromise client trust. Attached, a note to HR summarizing the incidents with dates and times, and a short civil cover letter from Holloway. I CC'd the partner who liked me from the softball team. I didn't have to add commentary. The dates did the commentary for me. And then there was the fourth delivery, the one only I knew about. It wasn't a box. It was the deed transfer on the small cabin by the lake my father left me, the place I thought we'd take our kids one day. In a week, it would be signed over to my sister and her family. I'd decided I wouldn't keep a place heavy with ghosts. Better to fill it with my niece's marshmallow-fueled laughter and my brother-in-law's terrible guitar. That delivery was to my own future, a decision stamped, notarized, done. I slid into the driver's seat and watched the couple with the parking ticket finally agree to take the discount and mail the rest. Compromise. It looks noble until you've compromised yourself so many times the mirror stops recognizing you. At home, the condo felt like a set after the actors leave. Props in the right places, the air holding onto lines that no longer belong to the scene. I fed the cat, watered the snake plant she always forgot, and set my watch for too early. I slept on the couch, shoes still on, not because I was devastated, but because this was not a night for ceremony. I woke twice, once to the cat pawing my forehead, once to the memory of her voice at dinner. I regret absolutely nothing, echoing like a dare. I smiled in the dark. Regret would meet her in the morning. Regret is never late when there's a schedule. At 7, I brewed coffee strong enough to scrub paint. At 7:58, the locksmith knocked. A young guy with a toolbox and a kind face. He glanced at the photo of us on the entry table and then at my expression and didn't ask. He changed the deadbolt with efficient clicks. "New keys," he said, setting them on the counter like a doctor setting down test results. I thanked him, tipped too much, and propped the door for the movers. They arrived at 9, 2 guys and a woman who lifted a wardrobe box like it was filled with pillows. I handed over the list. These are hers, those stay. The art goes with the boxes labeled her office. The kitchen stuff labeled gifted goes to the donation pickup at 10. She scanned the room, saw the plan, and nodded. "We'll be careful," she said. And they moved like a river gets work done. Steady, not loud. At 9:27, I heard a car door slam in the garage and keys fumble at the old lock. She swore when they didn't turn. The bell rang twice. I opened the door to a version of my wife I didn't recognize. A long night on her face, the dress from dinner wrinkled, a smear of eyeliner turning her eye into a bruise. "What is this?" she asked, voice pitched high the way it goes when people try to command reality back into shape. I stepped aside so she could see the boxes, the empty spaces on shelves where her things had been, the locksmith kneeling at the back door tightening the strike plate, the movers carrying her shoe tower down the hall like a quiet parade. "Tomorrow came early," I said. "I didn't want you to miss your delivery." Her eyes flicked to the coffee table, where the leather envelope waited, matte and polite. She didn't touch it. "You can't do this without talking to me." "I'm literally talking to you," I said. "You can read the rest." "You're overreacting," she said, going for the late-stage tactic of people who have run out of better ones. "We can fix this." "We can't," I said, and I didn't raise my voice. "But we can finish it well." She stepped past me, grabbed at a box like she'd wrestled the plan back by force. The mover held up her hand. "Careful, ma'am. Fragile." In the hallway, my phone buzzed with a new email. Subject line: "Your courier has arrived." I looked at my wife and then at the clock. Right on time. Somewhere across town, a receptionist was signing for a basket with a policy attached. Somewhere else, her mother was opening a letter and deciding whether to call me, her daughter, or the neighbor first. Here, in my living room, my wife finally picked up the envelope with 2 fingers and slid a single page out with the speed of someone who expects to see a bill and instead finds a mirror. Her face changed. Not theatrically, just honestly. Like a person finally noticing that a candle in a restaurant doesn't make the dark disappear outside. It only lights the check. Her hand trembled as she held the papers. I watched her lips move as she read, each word sinking deeper, every sentence chipping at the wall she'd built between arrogance and realization. She looked up, disbelief flooding her face. You had a lawyer?" "For months," I said quietly. "I prefer being prepared over being dramatic." She blinked fast, her voice cracking. "You can't just... This isn't fair. We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll quit my job. You'll what?" I interrupted gently. "Pretend it didn't happen? Pretend I didn't watch you walk out of our anniversary dinner to meet him?" Her words dried up. The movers passed by with the last of her boxes. One of them accidentally bumped her shoulder. "Sorry, ma'am," he murmured. She didn't respond. I walked past her and opened the window. Fresh air slid into the room. "I think you should go before the donation truck gets here," I said. She flinched like the words hit harder than shouting ever could. "Where am I supposed to go?" "You've been staying with him," I said, turning back. "I'm sure he'll find room for you, at least until HR reads his morning mail." Her eyes widened. "What did you do?" "Nothing illegal," I said with a faint smile. "Just told the truth. Jeremy's company has a strict code of conduct. It doesn't mix well with late-night affairs involving client spouses." She paled. "You wouldn't—" "I did," I said. "It's already in their inbox." She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her hands shook as she tried to collect the envelope and the papers she'd dropped. The words "divorce settlement" stared back at her like an unwanted headline. I poured myself another cup of coffee, the rich scent filling the quiet. "I think honesty suits you better," I said. "You wanted to live freely, now you can." Her voice finally broke. "You're punishing me." I met her gaze. "No, I'm finishing what you started." The donation truck pulled into the driveway, its engine humming like background music to an ending I'd rehearsed 1,000 times in my head. The movers loaded the last box, signed the form, and nodded to me. "All done, sir." She looked around, eyes darting from wall to wall as if searching for a piece of her old life to cling to. "This is my home," she whispered. "It was," I corrected. "Now it's just a place that remembers you." The locksmith handed me the new set of keys. "All finished," he said. "You're secure now." I slipped the keys into my pocket. Perfect timing. She wiped at her tears, anger replacing shock. "You think this makes you the good guy?" "No," I said, stepping closer until she could see the steadiness in my eyes. "It makes me the guy who finally stopped being the fool." She pressed her palms against her temples. "You planned all of this for weeks," I said, "while you were out, working late." The movers closed the truck doors. The sound echoed like a period at the end of a sentence. She looked at me one last time, rage and regret tangled on her face. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I already did," I said softly. "That's why I'm done." She left without another word. The front door clicked shut behind her, leaving a stillness that felt cleaner than silence. I stood there for a long moment, then picked up my coffee and sat on the couch. The sun slipped through the blinds, warm and unbothered. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. An email notification popped up. HR matter. Confidential. I opened it. The message was short. "Mr. Miller, thank you for your submission. We've begun an internal review. Please consider this matter officially under investigation." A quiet laugh escaped me. Not bitter, not cruel, just final. The truth had started its work. By noon, my sister called. "So you finally did it," she said, half proud, half shocked. "I did." She showed up here crying. Mom told her to leave. "You okay?" "Better than I should be," I admitted. "It's strange. I thought I'd feel empty. And instead? Relieved, I said. Peaceful even. She paused. You always were the calm one. Not calm, I said, watching the sunlight stretch across the floor. Just done letting people rewrite my story. Later that afternoon, a courier arrived at Jeremy's office with the basket and policy envelope. By evening, social media did what it does best, spread whispers faster than wildfire. My phone lit up with messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Did you really send HR his messages? Man, that's savage. You're a legend. I ignored them all. This wasn't about applause. It was about closure. The next morning I woke early and took a drive out of town. The sky was painted in the kind of orange you only get after storms. I stopped at a diner, ordered black coffee, and opened a fresh notebook. On the first page I wrote, Day 1. Freedom feels quieter than I expected. A notification buzzed across my phone screen. A local news alert. Executive at marketing firm under investigation for ethics violations. Sources confirm suspension. Jeremy's face flashed on the screen. I set the phone face down, smiled, and took another sip of coffee. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone's life. It's about rebuilding yours without them. I folded the newspaper, left a generous tip, and stepped outside into the morning light. The air felt clean. Tomorrow's delivery had come right on schedule, and it delivered exactly what I promised. Peace, neatly wrapped in justice. 3 months later, the world had finally gone quiet. No more late-night phone calls, no more lawyers, no more memories I had to dodge like glass on the floor. The divorce was finalized. She didn't contest it. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she'd finally realized that some bridges don't burn. They collapse under the weight of their own lies. Jeremy lost his job. I didn't celebrate it. I just let the news sit there, like a headline that no longer belonged to me. The article mentioned breach of ethics and client misconduct. His company scrubbed his name from their website overnight. I didn't need revenge after that. The truth had already done the job. I moved into a smaller place across town. Nothing fancy, just quiet. The kind of space where I could think or not think at all. My mornings became simple. Strong coffee, a run through the park, then work. The silence that used to scare me now felt like peace. One evening, as the sun melted behind the skyline, I got an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, I owe you an apology. It was her. She said she didn't expect forgiveness, that she'd moved in with her sister, that Jeremy had shown his true colors faster than she could pack her things. He'd blamed her for everything when the investigation hit. She said she'd been applying for jobs, trying to start over. Then she wrote, I used to think you were weak because you never yelled. Now I realize you were strong enough not to need to. I read it twice, then closed the message. No anger, no satisfaction, just closure. Sometimes you don't need to reply to finish a conversation. Silence does it for you. A few weeks later, I drove out to the lake. It was a crisp morning, the kind that reminds you life keeps moving even when yours pauses. I sat on the pier, watching sunlight ripple on the water, and thought about how far I'd come from that restaurant night, the candlelight, the sneer, the calm before the unraveling. I'd built a new rhythm, a job promotion, a small group of friends who didn't ask about the past, and a sense of myself that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. I was learning how to live again, not react, not plan revenge, just live. Then, one morning, while leaving my apartment for work, I saw a familiar car idling by the curb. She stepped out, clutching an envelope. She looked smaller, humbled. Mark, she said softly, I just wanted to return this. She held out the watch I'd given her on our 10th anniversary. You should have it. I looked at it, gold, scratched, worn, and then at her. Keep it, I said. It's a reminder of time. You might need it more than I do. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't look away. You really don't hate me? She asked. I don't have the energy to hate, I said. That belongs to who I was before. She nodded, slipped the watch back into her purse, and left without another word. I stood there for a long moment, feeling the air shift. It wasn't closure I'd just gotten. It was release. That weekend, I met some friends at a small art fair downtown. I wandered through booths until I saw a woman painting near the fountain. She was focused, her hands covered in color, her expression calm in a way that made the noise around her fade. We started talking. About nothing, about everything. Her name was Elise. She laughed easily, asked questions that didn't feel like prying, and had eyes that looked like they could see through excuses. When I told her I was divorced, she didn't flinch. She just said, "Sometimes endings make room for better beginnings." That night, as I drove home, her words echoed in my head. I realized the last piece of revenge wasn't about payback at all. It was about happiness. The kind that doesn't have to prove itself to anyone. Months later, as Elise and I stood on that same pier, watching the lake catch fire with sunset, I thought about everything I'd lost, and how none of it mattered anymore. My wife's betrayal, Jeremy's arrogance, the chaos, all of it had led me here. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It just settles in, quietly, when you've finally made enough space for it. I turned to Elise and smiled. "You know," I said, "I used to think revenge was about getting even." She tilted her head. "And now? Now I know it's about moving on while they stay stuck in yesterday." She smiled back, the wind brushing her hair across her face. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a man who lost something. I felt like someone who finally walked out of the fire and didn't look back.